So this is video number 2, and you're absolutely going to want to take notes because there's some very important information here and also vocabulary that you want to know. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about transferring your image, and then we're going to talk about how to use the gouges and cutting and some safety issues. And then the third video will be me showing you how to print off your plate. So let's start with the plate you're using. Now, I've requested that you get some linoleum, Battleship Gray. It also comes in this tan color. It's unmounted, meaning there's no plywood under here or particle board. And we're using the same thickness rather, because if we all use the etching press to print instead of by hand, then the pressure is the same versus blocks that are different thickness. That's the first thing. I prefer the Battleship Gray. This to me is a little harder than this, but it varies depending how old the linoleum is. Now, you're also going to find these in the store, this pink and this rubber. These are really easy to cut. They're really soft, right? But the problem with purchasing this is that our transfer technique, it will not work on this rubber. It has to be on this linoleum or some other products like MDF board, but we're going to use linoleum. So whereas all of these are nice and soft to cut, they will not transfer the image as well. It doesn't do well with the pressure of the press. So that's why I ask you not to buy these. So you have your material and you're going to transfer your paper. Now, you definitely do not want to just sketch on your plate. You don't want to do that. You want to have your idea ready. Now, you don't have to have the toner transfer. You could actually just easy peasy, like with Shawnee here. Here's your plate. Get a piece of tracing paper. This is carbon paper. And this should be the size of your plate, obviously. I'm just showing you the technique. And so you would want to tape this. You'd want to tape this to your plate in case, I'll show you. You don't have to tape your paper, transfer paper, but you want to tape your image because you might want to look at it and then you can't put it back. You want to tape this down, right? So you can't align it. So you could use this very old school where you're just going to trace with something, like a pen, ballpoint pen. So you trace everything. These are big lines, so this isn't that suitable, but you're going to see what I'm talking about. So you want to tape this down because when you pull this away, you want to make sure that's aligned. So this is just transferring that drawing, okay? Which is quite a bit of work. So this actually, because they're enlarged from the other, yeah. And then you would take in this case, you would take your Sharpie and you would just go in on this plate, fill those in, everything that looks like that. That's just a tracing transfer technique, okay? I don't advise that. You certainly can. What I advise is that you use the toner copy transfer technique. Now, I'm just going to use this little print here because it's small for this demo. This is what the print looks like, okay? Right here. So usually this is going to be the size of your plate. But when I do this transfer technique, I'm going to cut my plate down after I transfer it. You can transfer it the same size, but I prefer to do that so I can tape it. So here's how you do this. So this is some old linoleum. Ooh, it's really hard. That's been around the studio, these scraps. And so you're going to take your drawing and that you've worked off of from the copy machine. But when you're going to do your transfer, this is really important. You have to use the copier in the studio because that is dry toner. So, and we only use that for this technique. And so what we can do is, once we get this image that we took your image from the other copier or from your drawing, we put it in the copier in the studio, it comes off, and this toner we can transfer to this plate with lacquer thinner, okay? So that's what I'm going to do. Now for here, now it can be tricky, meaning sometimes it doesn't work, but that's okay. Whatever puts it on takes it off, so don't worry about that. It's a little tricky. So, and I always have several in case it doesn't work, okay? So this is how you do this. This toner, theoretically, is going to be released with lacquer thinner, which I have in this little jar. And the trick here is too much and it doesn't transfer, not enough and it doesn't transfer. So this is very important. Since this piece of, and I need to take this off. Since this piece of linoleum has been around, you know, and linoleum a lot of times has a coating. Some do, some don't. What I did was I took that coating off with some wet dry sandpaper that's going to be in the studio for to use. This is 400. And so I went ahead and sanded this plate. And I did that because I wanted to get any coating off. Okay, I wanted this as porous as possible so that it would transfer. Hopefully it will. So, okay, now for me, I like to, you know, I would know exactly where that's going to go, but I want to show you to go ahead and maybe have your plate a little bigger if you're using this, and then cut it, because I want to look and make sure that's transferred, okay? All right, so this is how we do this. So too much and it doesn't transfer, or it bleeds, not enough and it doesn't. So a lot of times I will do this. Now, I just put this on, real thin layer, so let that lacquer thinner, let it, you know, evaporate a little bit. Okay. Then you put this down, your image, and then you put the lacquer thinner on the back of it. The toner is lacquer based. This is why inkjet does not work, okay? Now, for me, I like to let that evaporate a little, and then with a Baron, or you could use a spoon, whatever. This is a little aggressive. If I was using a spoon, I would have this on top so I didn't tear my paper. But we have Barons, and I'm going to use the Baron. And so I'm pushing down really hard. And I'm trying to transfer. I'm trying to get that really hard. Trying to get that to release to that block, to that plate, okay? Okay, so it hasn't released yet. You see that? Hasn't released yet. So I'm going to add some more. I'm going to saturate this a little more. And as soon as that's wet like that, I'm not going to wait too long. I'm going to go ahead immediately and try and release that onto that plate. Each plate is different. That's all I have to say. Like this plate is really old, brittle, probably not as porous as, well, who knows how old this is. But this, as you can see, when it works, is a lot easier than tracing. So let's see if I got a transfer here. Now, That's coming along. No, it's not. Okay, hold on. It's trying to get there. Okay, I'm not going to spend all this time because I think this plate probably needs to be sanded a little more. I need more pressure. Let me try this too. It worked on parts, but okay. This time I'm going to use, let me try this. So I did one, where is that, the other day to practice, and it worked really well. So I may get that, where is that plate, and show you how it looks. Let me try this first. Like I said, it depends on your plate, how old it is. It takes, sometimes it might take, it's transferring to the table. That's better, that's a lot better. Okay, that's better, not perfect. But that's a lot. Whoops, I just tore it. Okay, I'm gonna let that go. So you can see what I'm doing here. Now, I could transfer this, go back into it, so it would be really good. So that's where I didn't have enough pressure. Actually, there's nothing wrong with seeing what happens when it doesn't work too. So we're gonna go back. So I would probably sand this plate again, because there's some problems, but I have some copies. Not to worry. That's easy to do. Let me see if I, real quick, if I can see where that plate is. There it is. Okay. Well, actually, this is MDF. I don't know where that plate is, but that's okay. So you're going to transfer this, and it's going to look like this, okay? Now, as you can see by here, we can get it to be really dark, no problem, okay? But if it is a little light like this, that's not a problem either, because this is just your guide, okay? So remember, whatever is white, you cut out, and you leave everything else with your gouges. So let me just do this real quick, and then I'm going to show you how to use the gouges, how to use this too. Okay, so sorry that didn't work, but for this little demo, but that's okay. I might do it again another time. Well, I actually need to find that other one. But this will get, those that are ready to get started, this will get you started. Okay? Now, and I'll show you how to put these in because they're tricky. But all I'm showing you is this. That whatever, now if you can't, if yours is a little not perfect, and they're all not perfect, okay? So you could get here with your fine point Sharpie, and if you need to delineate, you know, you can draw right on this. It's not a problem, those lines, okay? But I can see it. So here you can see a little better. So all you're going to do is, that would be cut. You're going to cut whatever is white. See how easy that is? Now this is a little tricky going between these lines, so you don't want your lines too thin, okay? So that's totally, all the information is there, right? There's your information. You're going to cut that line, control it. Now, is this going to look a little different than this? Yeah, what I'm doing is going to look a little different because different hand, my information is a little different on here, not to worry, okay? So after everything is cut out, you're going to proof it. And if you need more cut out, then you cut more. What you don't want to do is overcut, okay? Like this area here that had these little, these scratch marks, I would say cut, you know, half of them and then proof it and then keep cutting more and more. You want to always undercut, okay? Even in these clear areas, the white areas. Now this is an example of that, and that's called the noise in the plate. So when Shawnee cut this, she didn't have this plan, these marks. She just undercut the white and then left them. You see these little dots? And then when she proofed, she cut some more or left them, okay? So you don't want to clear this solid white. You can always go solid white like this. Undercutting is leaving some lines there, proofing, and then going back and taking out. Because that's one of the qualities that's very unique to this medium, is the noise in the plate. Because you wouldn't draw with ink like this or with a Sharpie. So that's a quality of this medium. Now, so your image is on your plate and it transferred beautifully. I will have to help you with that because it's tricky. When it works, and when it doesn't, it's just tricky. And then the lacquer thinner. Look, we have paint thinner, we have denatured alcohol in here. You can use lacquer thinner. That's the only thing that transfers this, okay? Now, let's talk about the cutting and the safety. All right, you're gonna use your gouges, okay? And your gouges, pretty inexpensive. You know, they're really little X-Acto blades. So these come in a pack, and right back here is where you're gonna store them, okay? When you're not using them. A little storage. Now, gouges are, if you're carving a piece of sculpture in wood, they're all gouges. They're just bigger, okay? So the first thing you're going to notice is you'll have a straight blade, which you're not going to really use. That's stop cut for if you're doing a stop for wood cut so that the wood doesn't splinter. So in your packet, you're going to have these shapes. It's going to be, this one is a V. You're going to have, this is a baby V shape, bigger V, and this is actually it's a U. And you might have a C, okay? So those are your gouges. And what might be difficult to see here, okay, is this. This little baby V gouge. So this is a V gouge. And then the smaller one, you know, is maybe really tight, little lines, where this is a bigger line. And then you have U gouges and you have C gouges, okay? So a V, a U, or a C, okay? Now, so what you'll do is, in this little tool here, there is this little ball. You loosen it up, and there's a little floating ball in there, right? And on the side of the ball, is you've got the outer ring. Whoops, let me do this. Got the outer ring, but you also have a piece of metal in there that sort of floats, and it's split in half, right? So you're going to put your gouge in here next to the ball, between that little piece of floating metal. And that's round, so that's a U. Now, you put the end in that doesn't have the sharp blade, okay? So this is the razor right there, that end. So you take this and you look at that floating ball. This is really loose. And then I just hand tighten that down, okay? And I'm ready. All right, that's how and then you take these out. All right, I'm gonna demo this. Now, we have all this extra scrap linoleum in here that I want you to practice on before you get started your piece. And so let me just show you how this works. So here's a piece of practice linoleum. I'll just darken it because when we roll it black, it's gonna be black, or whatever color you're using, piece of blue, whatever. Okay, so here's just, we roll that up with our ink. If we rolled this up, it'd just be solid black. Now, This is a bench hook that you're going to borrow that belongs to the studio. All these terms you should know, and they're certainly on the National Teachers Exam. Gouges, bench hook. This is for safety, okay? And so what you want to do is you want to push, you have your plate like that, right? And you always have your hand behind this when you're cutting. You never have your hand in front because you will slip and then you'll cut yourself and you might need stitches. That's happened before. So, you want to use the bench hook. Your hand always behind this, okay? Always. Okay? Now, if you need to cut like a little angle, I have these little holes here. I have some little dowels that we can put in these holes. They're called dogs, and you can have an angle, okay? Now, so let me just show you this, and you're going to practice on some of these. So this actually is sort of a U, and so look, you see that shape? That's a pretty big line, isn't it? So I'm controlling this, and I'm going to talk about how I cut in a second. So the closer they are. Now, this is going to be on your plate. You know exactly where to cut white, right? I just want you to practice with your tools, and so that's that mark. Now look at this. If I use this little baby, this actually, you're going to get a C gouge, which is more for clearing. This is actually a V. But look at this baby V. So that has to be seated. I tighten it. This is how you get your different line qualities. My hands behind. Look. Baby lines. You see that? Now, you need to practice your lines. Well, how deep? Well, you don't have to go all the way halfway through. Some people overcut. Your line should only be about, I'm going to say, not even 1/8 of an inch. You know, a 1/16 at least, 2/16 would be good, but 1/8 is too deep. Now, the deeper you go, 1/8 should be max. It's easier to ink if it's too shallow. Too shallow is a problem. So I'd say right before 1/8. And you can let me check your plate. So as you can see by these, I don't have a C gouge that makes a different kind of cut. I don't have it with these. But you'll get your packet and you will practice so you know how to do this. Once you slip, you can't repair it. So you want to control it, okay? You don't want to be ideating when you're ready to cut because this is already on your block, maybe not this noise, but your design is on your block and then you just cut the white out. Now, how do I cut? First of all, and this is where we're going to end. I prefer to stand. I'm standing instead of sitting because when I cut, I'm actually using sort of my upper body. In my arm, I'm using sort of my whole arm, right? And I'm pushing with my arm. I'm not just using my wrist, you know? No, you got to sort of use all this. So I prefer to work above it, sort of put my body into it. And so for me, you have to control it. I prefer to go down a little bit and then get my angle and then slowly, I'm controlling it and then stop. You see here, if I don't, actually I went a little too deep there. If I don't control it, then my line will say, okay, here's thick, and then see I didn't control it. It goes off to this, unless I wanted that, okay? But that's you practicing. If I want that kind of line, that's fine. But if I want, and there I slipped, okay? So you have to practice. Now, I'm holding this like that, okay? I'm not like this, not like this. I'm really gripping this, and I have my angle. I'm not like this, that's too thin. So you'll practice, I get my angle that I want, and then I will push. And notice again, I'm cutting with my hand, not in front. That's where your accidents happen. So you're going to want to do this. This just feels natural to hold that down, but always behind. You push against that, using both hands, and I'm controlling this, okay? There you go. So you will take some of these samples. You will be assigned a bench hook, and you will practice cutting before you get to your plate, okay? So that's that, and the next video I'm going to show you once your plate is cut, how to print, assuming you have done a couple of proofs, okay? So, okay, well that's good. Make sure you took good notes that you can refer to when you're working.